Welcome back to another episode of the World Through Zen Eyes podcast. I'm Young Anson. I'm here with
Dr. Ruben Lambert.
And welcome back and Happy New Year, I think.
Yes, Happy New Year.
This is the first one.
The first one in the new year. Yes.
First one in the new year.
Well, solar new year if we're going to first
Right.
define the new year and how many we celebrate.
We are party animals.
Yes, we are.
We have the winter solstice. That's one celebration. Then we have the solar new year. Then we have the lunar new year.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Ipchun. Chongwol Daborom, if you count the first full moon of the new lunar year.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of opportunity for new beginnings.
Right. It's a season of renewal.
Right. And we are, what is today? Today is the 16th of January.
Yes.
So I guess a good idea would be to talk about
what happens after we make that full trip around the sun.
Right.
To most human beings.
Yes.
I think it's the time where there's a resurgence of gym memberships.
That's right.
Everyone is calling their therapists.
Yes. Trying to get
everyone's trying to
track.
Yeah. Think about how they can better themselves, right?
Yeah. You know, it's I remember Nojangnim Unsarim was telling us a story once, and of course I believe it was the Lunar New Year. You know, big celebration and whatnot. And Unsarim as a kid at the time says, Nojangnim, today is a New Year. 그래? Oh. And the sun comes up at a different place? What? The sun comes up in some different place? No. It goes down a different place?
Mm-hmm.
No. Then what kind of new what? Right.
Right.
Which is interesting, because we could look at it that way, that it's a construct, right? Who's counting? If no one was counting, how would you know New Year or what have you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is more so with the Gregorian calendar and the unification of businesses, frankly. Lunar calendar is a little bit more nature-oriented and agriculturally focused, really.
Right, it's in sync with the natural cycles of Mother Nature, right?
Yeah. And when we were close to the earth, in a sense, when we were still, I mean, people are farming still today, I'm saying, when the majority of people were tied into the natural rhythm of life, they had to know these things. In fact, when you become of age, as it were, long time ago in Korea, you go through an examination, and this is only for the higher castes that were there at the time. So the Yangban class, you would go through an examination as a child, and when you passed, you would be given a hope. Hope was a little tablet that hung off your belt, and it had some information on it, and it made you an adult, in a sense.
You had sufficient understanding and knowledge
of certain things, yes.
Certain natural laws and certain
and that
ways of functioning and living in the world.
Right.
You were ready for those things.
Yeah.
Right?
And those were the questions asked. You know, one of the first questions was about the EC side Charilgi, the 24 seasons, right? And you know, the way it worked out, the elders of the family sat and you were sort of cross-examined, great grandpa and grandpa and and father and uncles and you were cross-examined on account of what is your knowledge of certain things, proper behavior, like a jejagyu. In the Yangban caste, you were also asked about agricultural things, of when is wheat planted, when is rice planted, when it's harvested, etc., etc. And even though you yourself were not a farmer, you were the owner, and the owner ought to know. It's a little bit different today. You hire a foreman or a manager, and they run it, and you could go and do whatever your heart desires. But back then, as the owner, and the kings were also in that way. You were to know the lives of the subjects, not aloof, not separated, not obviously you had a different life, but you were to know the going-ons, because how else are you to tend or help or you could bring a country to ruin if you don't know what you're doing. Oh, that rhymes. So we could go with that.
I think people lived in a truer sense by the word community, and understanding what it is to commune with the people that support you, and what it is to commune with the earth itself. And if you look at a lot of I think every culture has something along these lines, these rites of passages where they highlight what it is that is necessary in order for the collective to survive, right? In this case, you're describing, the child that's becoming a man had to understand what it is that fed either the household or the greater community, which is agriculture and maybe hunting. And you could see in these rites of passages with the Native American tribes, where they had to understand, what it is that we hunt for the survival of the tribe. And then you were able to include some type of morality along with that, right? Where you honor the killing, and then you don't waste any part of that which you killed. And this becomes then a transmission from generation to generation. The other thing, too, that when you said 24 season, what I thought of is the measuring stick that people use to look at or notice these changes, right? Yeah. Because in the greater culture here in the West, we only talk about 4 seasons, right? So what is your measuring stick? Right? You can talk about, the greater changes in the universe, and you can look at the day-to-day, whether it's the moment of renewal and change comes with each breath, or each morning, each day, each week, each month. What is it that you're trying to, accomplish, and by what means of measurement are you using? Every chala, right? Every nanosecond, or, so I guess this just becomes important background context for us to understand.
Yeah, and you mentioned some communal and community and holistic view of life. It's the hunting and the rituals that were performed. The hunt wasn't selfish,
right?
Still in Alaska, and I'm sure in other cultures, not the ones that have. Or the ideologies or philosophies that have so heavily skewed towards individualism. In those places, if you go for a hunt, what you bring back, you share especially with the elderly who can hunt anymore.
Yes.
And it's this memory and remembrance, of the fact that you're most likely learned any skill you possess from the elders, whether it's hunting or weaving or house building or whatever it may be. And so you had that gift from them when they were able, and you mustn't forget that you are to return the fruit of that gift when the time comes, and so help the ones who can't no longer, but if it's not weaved into the general psyche, it doesn't work. And this is the problem we're facing with, because then people say, well, I'm going to do a thing, but no one's going to do a thing for me. So it is just this twisted survivalist mechanism kicks in and says, well, I'll do it for somebody, but nobody's going to do it for me. Then why should I, kind of thing.
Mm.
So yeah, the communal, holistic view of life.
But do you think as these societies grow larger and we infuse technology into it, and we weave these highways of these exchanges of goods that can literally come from anywhere in the world in an instant, right? You can have strawberries 24 hours a day. I always say to someone, yes, you always gain something, but what do you lose as things advance? And you lose, I think, over time, appreciation and understanding that, life is a unbroken link of cause and effect. And when you go to these more secluded areas, this idea of appreciation is louder and highlighted more, because they're a little bit more distant from this instant chain of like, okay, if I have a teacher, but there's a million teachers around, I get kicked out of this, I can be rude to this teacher and I don't lose my teacher, I now go to another classroom and I have another teacher. But when you have this direct link of like, I know how to hunt, and it came specifically from this person, and then my grandfather, and then he got it from his father and his father and his father. You see it, you're close to it, you can touch it, you can feel it. I think we generate a greater sense of appreciation. And I've seen those documentaries on the whale hunting, and it's almost a matter of life and death for the communities that are a little bit more isolated, and it's more poignant, right? Because if they don't come back with the hunt, the whole community
suffers,
right? And I've seen that, and they do a ritual. I've seen it too when they cut the whale at the shoreline. It's a ritual. It's really, they infuse this idea of spirit and wholeness and oneness in this whole process. Yeah, really, it's a beautiful thing. It's really living, breathing community.
So much, it's not a slaughter so much as a holy
celebration
communion
of life.
Yeah,
right. We can go on.
Right.
Our culture can go on. The things that we value can continue. Our lives can continue because of this. So how could you not have gratitude and appreciation? But when we distance ourselves from it, right? Like, it's almost like when everything becomes monotonous, and you know when you go to the sink, you're gonna turn it on and there's water. Know when you want hot water, it's there. When you open your fridge, there are things there. Naturally, over the course of time, and this is also in relationships, you understand that this person is just, your parents are always there when you need them, and they provide for you all your basic needs. Unfortunately, human beings, we have this sense we just become less appreciative. We forget. Sure. And that's why I think, just tying this all back to the new year, these moments of renewal and change is a time to really hone in and understand that everything... Wake up. Everything's interconnected. You have to appreciate this unbroken causal chain from way long ago that has brought literally these gifts to you. Don't waste it.
Yeah. Don't waste it is a big one. Like I said, you can leave the water running in a sink when you're brushing your teeth, or you're making a great excursion towards the refrigerator, and then but the water's still running, hot water, right? But if you had to chop wood,
right,
to make that water hot, your economy of the usage changes drastically, and this is a matter of thinking. I think just thinking, because we have it. Yeah, you're thirsty and you've gone out, and you have your water bottle, and when you start seeing, I have like eighth of the bottle of water, and it's a hot day, and you finish up the water, and you kind of wait, your tongue sticking out, and you wait for that one last drop to hit your tongue, because I mustn't waste it.
Right.
Of course, for most of us, and by and large, we, a stone's throw away from a store where you could buy more water. But um, still there are those moments that remind us we're just not wakeful enough in our day-to-day lives to catch these things. We're in a rush of pursuit of something. Wakefulness, if you feel a sensation that signals for you to go to the restroom, and you feel that and you acknowledge that and you have a thought, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. As you stand up and as you start your feet moving and you open the door and you go into the bathroom, between where you initially received the sensation, acknowledge the sensation, and the whole great journey for you to get to the bathroom, depending on how far away from you are, it's the mind is transported. So if I feel the urge to go now, I think bathroom, and it's as if my soul has pulled out of my body and is in the bathroom. And anything that happens, the walking, the movement of my body, the other thoughts that are happening as I make my way to the bathroom are lost to me. And the soul has already gone to the bathroom. And just the delayed reaction journey of the physical body.
The actual process.
Right. So we lose the thing. And this is our tendency of the mind. It skips from here to there, wherever there is. And this is
you don't think about the journey until you twist your ankle one day and it hurts. And then every single step that you take, the mind is drawn there. And you're like, whoa, I'm taking a step. Right. Wow, I'm taking a step. Wow, I'm taking a step. It's only in those moments when you hurt yourself that you remember
some kind of
reflect,
loud,
right? Yeah. Unfortunately. And then we always say, why wait for that moment? That's too late. When you're hurt already, you've been damaged.
I think why people stand on a light and don't turn on a blinker.
Oh, yeah.
Because their mind has arrived at the store and is currently buying the milk and the eggs that you are going to buy. You're not driving. You're not like, I'm making this left turn. Here I am on this intersection in this car, and it has a blinker, and I turn the blinker because I'm turning, because I want to let other drivers know that I'm turning. How many times you stand on a light and there's a car in front of you, and you just cross your fingers and hope that the blinker doesn't go on the second the light turns green, and yet the light turns green and the blinker turns on if you're lucky, or sometimes not even. The mind being so entangled and so caught up with some other destination or some other going on that the current moment of living is gone. And this is the Zen thing, is the waking up, the appreciation, the knowing of the current moment unfolding, because everything else is either a mirage or a memory. It's either a dream or a memory of something. We really have only the now and the here. And I know this is bordering and adjacent to the bumper sticker kind of philosophies that I frequently highlight, that we mustn't just die at the slogans. But it really is. What is the most important time and place that is available to us, that is really where life is unfolding? It really is now.
It's the place in which you hold some power.
Right. You have no power in the next minute. You might not even be here. And you certainly don't have the power of the minute ago to undo anything. And this is also the foundation of our karmic burdens. It's not that you could undo it. You just have to do more good things if it's a negative thing that you're trying to ameliorate. But so it's during the New Year celebration, I gave a Dharma talk, and the point was about exactly the principle of New Year's resolutions. And I said that I prefer the term revolution, not a resolution. I resolve to do something, but a revolution. Because what we are trying to accomplish essentially is to, one, recognize something within ourselves, two, make a plan to alter that, and three, the effort of actually doing so. And what we are largely dealing with, if not the whole of it, are our 고정관념, our fixed. I mean, we've talked about 고정관념 numerous times on this podcast, and it's the fixed ideas, the habituated way that we operate in the world. To change that really is a revolutionary act.
It is.
Because when you think of the word revolution, you're thinking of an uprising against an oppressive force, right? Usually some injustice or some oppression. And so if the oppression is coming from above, in a sense, as it frequently is, it's easier to recognize it, right? I want to stand up, but I'm pushed down. Or I want to get up, I'm lying down on the ground. I want to get up, but there's a sort of boot on my neck kind of thing. So to feel the downward oppression is easier, and it's more available to our acknowledgement. I'm trying to do something, but you're oppressing me, right? But the 고정관념, our habituated way of doing and our beliefs in things and our views and we're not necessarily talking about the subtle ones. I usually ask people, how have you seen the sunrise? Oh, it's a new year. Have you seen a sunrise? And someone will say, oh, yes. Oh, have you seen a sunset? And they will say, oh, yes. And the truth of the matter is those are all 고정관념, because the sun doesn't rise or set. We are the ones that are moving and the things of that nature. So I'm not even talking about those. Those are to be considered at some other stage in our spiritual development. But the way that we respond to the world, the way that we respond to a verbal attack, or what we interpret a verbal attack to be, how we respond to circumstances and things of that nature. Those things, because in our own mind, the thought is, I'm right, because this is a thought of mine. An external or outward, downward oppression is clearly seen as an external force exerting power over me. Right, so the revolution against that is easier perceived and easier understood, and that's what we usually think about. Revolution against some external forces oppressing.
Right.
But because the thought arises from within, and it's hardly even true to call it a thought. It's a reaction, not a thought anymore. We think it's a thought, but we think all the thinking that we do is the greatest thing ever happened, So we think it's a thought. It's programmed. It is a 고정관념 acting out its habituated course.
Right. It's like almost like the reflex, right?
Yeah.
You strike below the kneecap.
Yeah, and you get the knee-jerk reaction.
But you think about that moment when the doctor does that. You didn't do that.
Right.
You didn't mindfully,
you didn't
willingly
think
do
about
that.
it.
You didn't order that leg to
Right.
move. It just moved by itself, right? So this is this kind of reaction that you have in those moments, because you're essentially, the moment has captivated you, and it's like a parasite. It's like a mental parasite, and now it's doing the driving, not you.
Right. And it's important to remember that we all have these knee-jerk reactions to things, but we have to remember that the fact that it's a knee-jerk reaction, something that's been acquired and established throughout our lives, doesn't absolve you from the karmic repercussions of your action, right? Because sometimes you get the, oh, that was just a reactionary thing, I'm sorry. Right, that's okay,
Right.
but doesn't absolve you from from reaping the karmic repercussions or legal repercussions or what
Yeah, I
have
think
you.
the law follows the same
Right.
points, right? Just because I think there's a saying that I've heard:
The
ignorance
ignorance
of the law, right, doesn't
right.
absolve you from its consequences.
Yeah. And so
Sometimes it's even worse. Right.
yeah, and you know, so it's this 고정관념. So it has this sort of internal. The mechanism is internal, albeit triggered by some sensory thing or a memory thing. But it's an internal thing, and it's sort of oppression by pulling, not by pushing. So it's not externally kind of mushed down by some external, power trying to oppress me that I have to launch this revolution against. It's the revolution against one's own oppression of self against self.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to look at it.
It is because we are so already externally focused. Everything of our interest and our sensory interactions are external. Sounds, smells, taste, touches, etc., etc. And we are so trained to look to the outside for the reasoning of causes and conditions, for the blame of, oh, that person, this thing, because that thing, that's why, that whole trajectory of cause and effect, but usually looking for some victimization of somebody outside or blame of somebody outside. And it's external. So the internal processes, when they arise within us, are hardly ever seen unless they are so extreme. Like you said, you twist your ankle, now you know you're walking.
Right.
Or you wake up and you have plantar fasciitis and your first time step down on the floor and you're screaming, cringe in pain.
Your nervous system is on fire.
And now you know you are walking. While at other times, if all the walking's fine,
for 50
you've
plus
walked
years of your life.
Yeah.
Now you're finally.
But have you?
Yeah.
So is it that I only walk when my foot's in pain? Is it that I only bend down when my back hurts? Is it only that I reach something on the shelf when my shoulder screams at me? Am I alive only in the moments of extreme?
Why wait for the damage before you wake up and make the proper adjustments to preserve your life?
And it's even just a question of sort of life itself.
Yeah,
it's sort of existential thing. Not of course it's why wait if you have a deteriorating shoulder, if you have shoulder impingement, and why wait, why not address it early? But just life itself. Am I only alive when I'm in pain? When I'm only alive when the extreme things are happening?
I love your idea, though, just to kick it back around to the 고정관념, because then I also had the thought, if we are living our lives constantly searching externally and just reacting, are we just a slave then of our reactions?
Yeah.
Because you're not
That's the revolution.
Participating in this thought of what just happened, what is my best way forward?
But here's the crazy thing. We are doing that, like you said. We're being driven around or led by our nose, by the stronghold of the 고정관념 grip, and then we do a thing, time and time again. So we're not participating, and yet we reap the benefits or the outcome of the thing. Right. I think at one point in time I had this imagery of a person who hates wheat, like the grain. And whenever a little patch of wheat grew, he would take a stick and just beat it because I hate this, and just keep hitting the wheat stalks. And the next season had 3 times more wheat because by hitting the thing, the seeds were scattered and everything.
That's a very good metaphor.
You know, and it's this kind of thing of perpetuating and perpetuating and perpetuating.
Right.
And so we are living, when we are living on autopilot, the autopilot makes decisions, ultimately decisions programmed into the autopilot by us, and it lives out these decisions, and these decisions then have their own outcomes, and we are faced with outcomes again.
Yeah.
But we, in a sense, didn't do it. I didn't do it.
It wasn't me.
Because the doing wasn't active.
Right.
The doing self wasn't doing. The doing self was asleep, letting, in that torpor of absent-mindedness to do a thing. But if we are only experiencing the extreme, we are certainly going to experience the extreme outcomes of those actions. So this is the bondage, and it's so sad, because the action is done when habitual, right? The action is done automatically. So almost without my participation. So when it's automatic or unconscious, right? In that context, I'm not there, so I don't even feel it. But the outcome of it comes back, usually an extreme, and I experience the outcome of it, and I feel it. I am awakened, because if I only live during extremes, then in the extreme of the pain of the outcome of my own doing, I am suffering. And then I fall asleep again. Another pattern of behavior comes out of me. I am asleep for it, because it's not extreme, because when it's habituated and unconscious, I don't know. I'm not even there. And then that again creates its outcome, and I suffer the outcome of it. And then one could say, well, all I'm doing is suffering, because I'm only awake during the sufferings and the extreme outcomes, and asleep during the actions of my habitual kojong.
My goodness.
It is.
This is like lighting one fuse inside of a firework factory. And then one goes off and blows up, and then it's just all downhill after that.
On and on.
The domino effect begins.
Right.
And each one lights up the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
Yeah.
And now you have a whole fireworks show going on there. Just from that one instant of lighting that one fuse.
Yeah, and the wakefulness that we practice, the wake up, shout of the Zen master, wake up right now, says in between the explosions of the dynamites, there is the fuse that connects, and you could cut that fuse very easily if you are awake. But you aren't. You come to exist in explosions. The plume of it then blinds you for the next explosion, and sometimes it's just one after the other, and one person might think that there isn't a break. All I have is explosion and explosion and explosion and explosion.
Yes.
But because the explosion creates this plume or dust or smoke, right?
You don't see clearly.
You don't see the next fuse of the next thing. And by the time the plume and the dust settles, you've already set off the next one. And for a person like this, it seems life is just one continuous course
thing
of
after
suffering.
the other.
Right.
You're just now drowning,
Right.
overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and the loud noises might scare you.
Sure.
All of these things just further cripple you and hinder you from becoming wakeful,
From living.
and taking action and changing literally. This is all a transformation. This is a inner revolution, as you're describing, that
It's
can
a
literally change
revolutionary
the
act.
course of your life.
And I say it's a revolutionary act in a sense that revolutions need mustering of energies, especially when there's a fear of the oppressive force, right? So you have to overcome one's own fear. But the inner revolution, and this is why we have to acknowledge things within ourselves that ought to be feared correctly. You know, Bob Kugyong Sutra says, do not dismiss the small actions. A jar fills drop by drop, right? And there's a time element, because it also says milk sours little by little.
Yeah.
And so it's these actions, whether good or negative, have this compounding, cumulative process with which we acquire the whole of it, the opjang, the jar of the storage of our karma. But we must have a healthy understanding. Is this thought that I'm having, is this behavior something that I ought to be fearful of within myself? When I see it coming up, should I sound alarms within myself and to kind of wake me up further into this very moment to make sure that I don't go down this path that is coming up?
Right. This is where I think you need to practice. This is what Zen calls us to do, to practice. Don't wait for the problem. I mean, you could look at a school, right? They don't wait for fire to practice fire drills.
Yeah.
Right? We practice the fire drill for hopefully never, but if that situation were ever to occur, one would understand.
And what makes the revolution element more really, I don't mean the word revolution in as a small thing. It really is revolution. It's a revolutionary act, especially when the the oppression of self by self is subtle, because we don't see it coming in.
It's a friendly, right? It's from the inside.
Right, and we don't see it. It's an inside thing. And we don't see it arising half the time.
We assume it's a friendly thing. It's coming from me. You identify with it.
Sure.
Like you said earlier, with that thought, it's my thought.
And then ego gets hold of it, forget it. When the ego gets hold of it, forget about it. You think you are right. I said that one time. I said, be careful of your thinking. We have this programmed ways, and it's not really thinking anymore. It's just remembering and confirmation biases and things like that. And a woman who was in the workshop, said, I don't know what to do with that, because all I have is my thinking, and I pride myself on my thinking, right? Which is a valid concern. But it suggests that all thinking is the same, right? There's no all thinking is just one kind of thing. There's various sources of our thinking, and that's what we're saying. 고정관념, these fixed habits of behavior, and we're talking about the negative habits of behavior, are come up, and they could be viewed as thinking. Racism, sexism, ageism, right? Bullying. All of those things.
There's always a justification that a person can make at that very instant, where it could be smoking.
Right. Why am I?
They make a justification. Yeah. This is right for me to do because.
That's right.
And there's endless things that can fill that sentence, right?
Yeah. And that's where we need the discernment of our inner happenings, which is another reason why we practice in Suheng. To observe the moment here is to observe all of the happenings here. People think that like these mindfulness practices, like, I'm just walking around, and so everywhere I go, I should just be thinking about my feet making contact with the earth. It's, there's to say, it's a preparatory practice. Because when the thought arises in my mind, what source has it that it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a genuine thought? Is it just a recollection of something I heard?
Mm-hmm.
Is it such mindless regurgitation of lifetime of behavior? Is it triggered by external circumstances? Is it triggered by internal circumstances? What's it caused? So if I'm feeling impatient, why am I feeling impatient? But you have to know you're feeling impatient to begin with. Why am I feeling impatient? Is it something that somebody said? Is it my current situation? What happened yesterday? Person comes and says, "Oh, I don't feel well. My stomach hurts," or I had diarrhea or constipation. And what we ask is, well, what did you have for the last meal you had?
Mm-hmm.
Breakfast. Or what did you have dinner time? So what were the steps, little by little, that brought you to the current condition,
Right.
current situation you're in? So if you're feeling impatient, to acknowledge you're feeling impatient is a big step, but then it needs to be impatient. Why?
How many people reflect in that moment? What did I eat that made me impatient? And by eating,
Right.
we're not talking about actual food.
Yeah.
What kind of feeling did I eat? What kind of
Emotional,
situation
right.
did I highlight in my life where I just consumed that with that, tunnel vision, or with those horse flaps?
Yeah.
Right.
What
What
did I
emotion did I
ingest?
ingest?
What did I ingest
that now
on
made me
TV?
impatient? What did I see on TV, on my phone?
Right.
Yeah.
It's so many things at play, and to
People
be
just
able,
say, "I'm just impatient."
oh well, that's
Right?
that's
I'm
the
just
other thing
feeling
I was
like
talking
this.
about. That don't get me started on that. I'm
Yes,
just
I'm just impatient, right? Nobody's just anything. Right?
nobody's just anything, and I had a whole talk about this
Yeah.
not that long ago about this just because this is another cop out, and it's another pretense of insight. Oh, I'm just like this, and it's usually declared in response to some negative thing. Oh, you're so violent. I'm just like that because X, Y, and Z. So, meaning you're fine with it, right? And at first, the person will say yes, but in the quietude of their own solitude, they feel uneasy with that. There's a posturing that takes place at when confronted and say, "Oh no, that's just who I am," and but they go home and the heaviness of it weighs. And I'm just like that. Is a cop out, like I said, that presents as some insight into self, and it's just like, well, that is to say, you wouldn't say that about dislocated shoulder. It's just like that.
Right. Let's just leave it.
It's just dislocated. I'm just gonna
There are
flop around. Like
there are
that.
a lot of bleeding hearts at the hands of a person that announced a decree into the world of, this is just the way I am.
Right.
Right.
Bleeding hearts, bleeding psyches, bleeding bodies, bleeding everything, bleeding bank accounts, bleeding anything and everything.
Livers.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess what we're saying is, as we do meander through this,
everything comes back around, though.
Everything goes, everything goes and
Interwoven
meanders
nice and neatly into a beautiful.
Oh, look, there's a butterfly.
Sweater.
It is my message for this year was this message of viewing our work of self-transformation, which people pick up during this time of year, not as a resolution, but as a revolution. And it is a revolutionary act to rise up against one's own prejudices, to rise up against one's own programming, mindlessness, 고정관념. It's a revolutionary act. It needs that kind of approach. It needs that kind of a strong banner to fly, because it's not a small task.
Not at all.
And as what it could provide It could revolutionize. It's a revolutionary act that could revolutionize who one is.
Absolutely.
What suffering and who one is. It's what sort of suffering are you casting yourself and those around you into? And the karmic consequences never stop.
Never stop.
I didn't know doesn't do it. So, cheers, y'all.
Wake up.
Wake up. Towards
Intercede
intercede.
in this
It is
mindless
a revolutionary act, yes.
that maybe you weren't participating in, yet you have to be, no matter what, the receiver or the person who is bequeathed the effects of your actions.
Right. If you want to live.
So give yourself a gift to your future self. Give your future self a gift today with a heroic act of interceding in this Kojun Kwanyon that you've been gathering and collecting for many, many years. But you must muster up great courage too, because it is to go against this wave of habits, of
and
ideas,
the ego will mount a great defense.
Mount a great defense against
against change. Sure, against but that's just that's what it is. That's the rationale and the rationalization.
Some people will hold on to their suffering because they've completely identified themselves as a person who suffered for so many years that they don't even
their
know.
Identity. Yeah.
So there's the fear of the unknown. Who am I if I don't carry this with me?
It's an empty nest thing, right?
Really,
what is it when a couple and the children leave the home, and then there's that empty nest, and frequently leads to divorces and separations, right? Or some crises, and well, do we even know one another? We've spent 20 years tending to the children, and now that they're gone, what am I no longer? What am I? Because I'm not a soccer mom anymore, and et cetera, and so there's an empty nest of when we graduate out of our Kojongkwanyam too. There's a fear of if you've identified with your suffering and justified your suffering and your behaviors on account of some childhood oppression or some trauma, and again, we're not downplaying any traumas that people have undergone, but we're just saying that sometimes that becomes the whole of the person and the identity of the person, and the person will hold on to it because, like you said, well, if I'm not this, then who am I? And it's just a theoretical question that blocks the actual work, because when you do get rid of it, you'll find out who you are, and what you find out you are pleased with. But the fear is, if this is an entire persona of me, then there's nothingness that is behind it. But that's absolutely not the case. But it's just a theoretical thinking that prevents people from doing the work, and that's the justification. It's like, well, if I think Tom Waits has this line and it says, if I get rid of my devils, will my angels leave too? And that kind of thing. So, but don't fear. There's absolutely a wonderful thing behind all of our acquired dust. May you be dustless in this new year.
Yes.
I think that's it for us.
Yep.
Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, I'm Myung-An Sanim.
From my heart to yours, I'm Dr. Ruben Lambert. And I want to encourage everyone to take the path less taken. It's going to be challenging because it hasn't been tended to. That path hasn't been carved. But at the end of that, hard work and diligent effort, there's a great oasis waiting for you at the end of that path that you carve out.